Hello and welcome to City Desk. I'm WGEM digital correspondent Jason Luton. Joining me today, we have two guests, Quincy Mayor Linda Moore. Mayor Moore, thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And we have Bruce Alford, who is the City of Quincy's Corporation Counsel. Bruce, thank you so much for taking time also to sit down and speak with us.
Thank you for having us.
And wanted to talk to both of you today because the fix-or-flatten program for the city has been in the news. Mm-hmm. Particularly after a fire at a property that was on the fix-or-flatten list earlier this week. Or over the weekend rather, what can you tell us about the status of the city's fix-or-flatten program? How many properties are we looking at?
Well, we spend about $150,000 a year on our fix-or-flatten program, plus we look for grants. Every year we try to address 10 to 12 properties that are beyond repair, or that we think maybe the homeowner could repair, so we give them the opportunity to do that. It's a longer process. Once we've identified the properties, then we have to do an inspection to identify, what's the real problem. Is it a public safety issue? Is it a nuisance abatement issue? Are their utilities still connected? Is anyone living there? So we answer those questions. Then we determine the best course of action. We notify the homeowner, and then the homeowner has a certain amount of time to fix the problem. If he doesn't, then we use the court route to actually tear it down, take possession of the property, or file a lien against it, and then foreclose against that lien. But there are a lot of other factors that play into it as well.
And Bruce, that's probably a good segue to asking you about this legal process. What is the process when it comes to taking this property into court, or for the city to take possession, and why does this process take a while?
Well, of course, the big thing is you got to go through the due process so we comply with the Constitution, right? And so we have to give notice to the owners. There's a 15-day notice before you even file your case. And then you got to file your complaint, get service on the owners and anybody else who has an interest in the property. So mortgage lenders or anybody who has a lien against the property. Once you get all that service done, then you move forward towards hearings and motions, and a case just moves through there. Ultimately, at some point, we get to a hearing where we show that the property is dangerous and unsafe and needs to be demolished, or potentially the defendant comes in and shows enough to say, hey, I can fix this, and here's my plan to fix it. And the court has done both routes before. Mainly, these are mostly demolition routes because the properties are so bad. But that, there's no set time frame. There's certain things like you got to give that first 15-day notice. After a person gets served with their notice, they have 30 days to answer. And so there are some timelines like that built into the process, that this usually is a 6 month to a year process as a minimum. Sometimes it gets crunched down a little bit if we really rush it. Sometimes have trouble finding people or whatnot, and it can last out over a year, unfortunately. So it's not a set easy timetable every time.
Well, Bruce, then, throughout the course of this time frame, like the property that was pretty much gutted by the fire on Chestnut,
right.
Are there liability issues for the city when these properties, derelict properties, are still standing and things are in the process? Like, does that create liability for the city, or does that fall on the homeowner still?
It's more falling on the homeowner. The homeowner still owns that property. We're asking for the right to go in and demolish it or make it be brought up to code, so we're taking the appropriate actions. So there's really not liability on us. And it's more the homeowner still has that liability. If we get to the point where we got a demolition order and we didn't demolish it for some reason, that's where we could have liability. But as a general rule, we get a demolition order, we get it knocked down just as quick as we can. So that's why we do this, is to avoid liability, is so we can show that we've done what we were supposed to do as a city, trying to get rid of these dangerous and unsafe structures.
I see. And Mayor, it seems like there are plenty of properties that have fallen into disrepair. That, coupled with the fact that we have a shortage of housing, safe or like clean or good housing for folks, particularly in the starter home class. Does demolishing these homes or taking more homes off the market, does that hurt, make things worse, or does it provide opportunity? How do you?
Well, I'd like to think that it provides opportunity. The home is not safe to live in, and we don't want people living in unsafe homes. But we do want a roof over their head. So a lot of times we have to weigh the consequences of, hey, if we have a family living in a home and they really shouldn't be because it's unsafe, where can we get them housing? So we try to work with the social service agencies to try to find them housing. In some cases, that's not possible, but we still don't want them living in an unsafe place. If we can remove the unsafe structure, then we want a developer or a builder to come and put a new building and a new property for somebody to live in. I'd like to turn around these vacant lots a lot quicker, but of course with the price of building materials, there are a lot of builders and developers that don't want to put homes in certain areas of town. So we have to overcome that by creating some incentives, and we're actually working on that right now with the Housing Task Force.
Do you have an idea about how many numbers of those lots there are that the city has that would have possession of?
Yeah, off the top
I
of my
think
head.
possession,
Yeah.
I don't think we have that many. The land
No.
bank has quite a few, I think 10 to 20, and I think we have maybe 10 roughly now, maybe a few more than that.
For folks then who wonder, well, why don't we just go ahead and push through and try and, I've seen arguments, well, we got to just tear them all down, like push forward and get as many of them as we can. I've also seen, folks arguing about, hey, this is private property. This is, people's livelihood, and the government cannot take possession adversely, right? So in that situation, how do you justify that argument, or where do you fall on that?
Well, we have to balance it out. We take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of Illinois, and the City Code of Quincy. So we have those three standards that we have to follow. The U.S. Constitution says we can't just take your property away from you for no apparent reason. So we want to respect property owners' rights, but yet when you live in a community, you also have certain obligations to your community. And one of those obligations is that you're going to maintain a property that's not a safety hazard and that's not a public health nuisance. So we kind of weigh those in to determine what's the best course of action. We have a team of probably 6 people that meets when we have a property, and then we look at what's the best course of action, what's the quickest way to get the results we need, and how can we turn the property to a new taxpayer who's going to build and develop it as quickly as possible.
All right. Well, thank you. That's quite a bit of information there about the Fix-or-Flatten program, and I really appreciate that insight into what the process is, for both the process and the thinking behind it. Want to turn our attention just a little bit to something that came out of the City Council last night. Council asking or giving you permission to send a letter to IDOT seeking sort of a swap of some property or road condition or road, right?
Right.
So this would be State Street from 24th to 36th.
It's actually been on our radar screen since the Schultz administration. That's how long the city's talked about it. In our meeting last fall, IDOT actually said, hey, we're open to talking about this. So that was our window of opportunity to now send them a letter to say we're interested in talking as well. We want to make some upgrades to make it a safer stretch of road for both pedestrians and vehicles. And so if we can work together and come up with a plan that would not only compensate us for the construction costs to upgrade, but then also enough to maintain it after we take possession. That's important.
So obviously there's probably quite a ways to go on that process.
Absolutely. We're probably 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years down the road.
Okay. But since I've got you here and we're talking IDOT, any updates or new information you can offer about potential bridge coming into Quincy?
Originally, it was on the 2030-2031 plan. It is now on the 2930 plan, so it's moved up a year. We're really happy about that. We'd like to move it up a couple more years. But of course, IDOT has a lot of major projects. So we're going to keep pushing them to get to it as soon as possible. MoDOT and IDOT have both signed off on it now, so that's good news, and should clear the way that they can move forward.
So when time comes, they'll be able to appropriate the money and hopefully get
That's
shovels in
correct.
the ground.
Yes.
Okay. I know that as the city goes, you've kind of gone through the time where there was just some questions about the city's tax levy, and I know that maintaining communication through these processes has been personally important for you. What can you tell us about budget process and how you're looking to involve more people into the process?
Sure. Well, first of all, we start the process internally next week. And we'll start by creating our staffing plans. We'll take a look at our staffing in every department and what the salaries are associated with that plan. So that way we kind of earmark the budget to pay for salaries, because salaries are 70% of our budget. We then look at what's left to say, okay, what else do we need to execute our plan? By the end of January, we will pretty much have a first draft. So we take the month of February then to tweak it and to make cuts. Every year we've had to make cuts because people put their wish list in and it's like, hey, sorry, I'd love to have that too, but we don't have the money. So we get it in a form that we feel is presentable to council. We'll want a balanced budget by the end of February, and then in March we start having public presentations to council. We invite the public to come to those meetings to learn about how do we determine what our general revenues are going to be. What's our capital plan for fixing streets and roads and water and sewer infrastructure? And what are our major expenses, in what areas, in what departments? And then we have the directors actually present their budget to council. We release the budget then to the public after we make changes that the aldermen have requested by the end of March. And then we will start public hearings in April. So we will have 3 Monday nights in April where we will do public hearings and ask the public to come and ask questions.
And then the budget ultimately must be approved by
By
what?
May 1st.
By May
So
1st.
right now it's scheduled to be approved on April 20th. That gives us 1 week of cushion in case we need to postpone it for any reason.
Well, surely that kind of thing never happens.
Oh,
either.
no, never.
Well, Mayor, I really I know also that the city has received a safety study program grant from Federal Department of Transportation, U.S. DOT. What can you tell us about this grant program and what does that mean for the city?
Well, if you've noticed, it seems like recently we've had a lot of vehicular rollovers and accidents. So we want to do a safety study to determine, are there ways that we can make our streets safer for both pedestrians and vehicles? And what are those problem intersections or those problem areas? How can we make corrections that will make it safer for everybody? And what would that cost? Are there technology programs that could help us to make safer streets? So this $200,000 will help us cover the study portion. And as a result, we will get a crash analysis back. We will get a safety program plan back. And then we can decide what we want to implement or how we might implement those.
And that does involve a $50,000 city match, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So cities pays 20% of the bill and
Exactly.
feds take up the rest. Okay.
Yes.
Well, Mayor, I want to thank you for taking time to come in. Mr. Alford, I really appreciate that as well. And hopefully we'll have a chance to speak with you both again soon.
Great. Thank you
Sounds
for
great.
having
All right,
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.